Hey, welcome to the Inner Circle podcast, where growth minded leaders come together to build better businesses and better lives. I'm your host, Hector Alvarado. Here, we don't do theory, we share real lessons, real systems, and real strategies you can use right away. This is a community for people committed to growth, impact, and supporting each other on the journey. You're in the right room, my friends. Let's get started. Welcome everybody back to the Inner Circle. As Alan said, last week we looked honestly at where the bottleneck is in your business, right? And some of you may have finished that founder dependency audit that I asked you to do, and we might touch on that later on. Some of you maybe not. But one thing we can talk about is the fact that there was some uncomfortable clarity that came out of that call last week. And some people thought, like, yeah, I get it, and we all live through that truth. But that's exactly what we want. We want to air out the truth because awareness is the first step.
I do this
now, now here's the thing that we're talking about, and that's identifying that bottleneck. We got that done, but that's only half the work. Once we get that done, we have to move into a little bit of what Alan talked about, which was applied, but applying into systems. Because what I have found and seen time and time again is that owners build amazing jobs for themselves and they call it a business. What we want to discuss today is how do we make that transition from a job that you're locked into to an actual high performing functional business that's built on systems that do the work. Not that you do the work, but the system does it for you. And that's what we'll cover in this series, and I'm excited to bring the second framework for you. And so let's talk about how we map out your core delivery process first off, because that's step one. Core delivery processes, identifying what needs to be systemized in your business, and starting with building your signature framework and write these out. Right now, here's what's going to happen is automatically you're going to say, great, you want me to do all this, but like, how do I get out of the way? You want me to build systems, which makes sense logically, but how do I do it? Because I don't really understand this. So that's why we're going to discuss this today and really break it down for you. So we want to start with a question that might sting a little. And that is, if you got hit by the bus today, tomorrow, right? Not fatal, just you're out of commission for a week. You got a broken leg, okay? But you're still there, all right? You're still able to work through it. What happens to your business? Have you thought about that? Is this something that's gone through your mind before? Because if it hasn't, here's the time to be truthful with yourself. Because most entrepreneurs don't really think about it. They don't answer it clearly and honestly. And in fact, they really believe that the business continues without a hitch. But the honest truth is that it does slow down. And so the question is, does it slow down significantly? Does it slow down a little bit? Does it stop entirely? Right? And so what is it? And you need to answer that question truthfully first, because that's going to set the path for what we're going to discuss today. Because I don't want you to take your answer as personal failure. It's not. It's not personal failure, folks. It's system failures. And that's the pattern that I see over and over again with entrepreneurs. So founders, they do the hard work. They build incredible businesses through hustle, experience, sheer force, and they hit $300,000, $500,000, $800,000 in revenue. Then the business stops growing. Not because the market dried up, not because they ran out of opportunity, but what happened was, again, they didn't know how to truthfully grow past that ceiling. Solving went through them. I'm sure you've seen this. I'm probably betting on the fact that you're living through that right now. And you can't scale a business that requires you to be every single human touch in your business. That shift from founder dependent to scalable business requires the fundamental change in how you think about your work and the work that you do. That's a mind shift, and it starts there. So stop thinking of your expertise as something you do. Okay, I want you to write that one down because that's the first step. Start thinking of it as something you design. You need to be the designer and the creativity around what you do. Don't lock that in to become your job. Don't protect it like someone's going to fire you, right? You actually want to be fired from those type of tasks because that's not where you add value for your business. Now, let's make sure that we move into the how do you design an expertise into systems, and how do we document process for your business so that you have repeatable frameworks. And someone could even start with saying, look, I want to know the difference between how do we do this right, because I've been in my business now for 15 years and it's functioning right. I'm making 800 $1 million a year in revenue and it's not broken. So why do I need this system? So I'm going to tell you, I can tell you many things, but I want to point out what Alan was actually just talking about, and I think it hit home for me because it's specifically what we're talking about today. It's working with a client who has been in his business for 30 plus years but can't give the business away because it's owner dependent. And I've seen this where it actually has hurt the business instead of actually growing and making that business grow. So let's talk about what the core three functions are for you to actually understand this. Okay. This is the first one that we want to talk about, and is about understanding your processes internally. Do you have documented processes? If you don't have them today, that's your first point of discovery that you need to understand. And it starts with your funnel process. You may be wondering, where's your next client coming from? And if that's the case, you need to start working on a proven, documented sales process that allows for incoming traffic. That's step one. The second one is your delivery system. And this is how you actually do the work. That's the second system that you want to implement and put into place. Your methodology, your frameworks, your quality standards. If this system is broken, your service is inconsistent. So it starts with sales funnels and then delivery funnels. Those are number two, okay? And the third one is your operation system. This is critical. This is super critical because it is how your team workflows and your communication and even your finance strategy work together and complete your entire business output. If this is broken, you're constantly putting out fires instead of building something or scaling. So this is something that we need to ask ourselves and ask this question. If you want to actually think about it, and which of these three systems is your biggest weakness right now? Out of those three, your sales funnel, your activity inbound, your documented process around delivery, or your operations. It starts with those three. And when you can identify your weakness, then you can start to work on the first one, because you might say it's revenue. Okay. If it's revenue, then let's start to think about how do we scale? How do we get more activity coming inbound and start to put in documented activity process behind it. Okay. The next one, again, is operations. And think critically, because most entrepreneurs, generally under 5 million, their first answer is delivery. They think that it's operations because revenue was that first obsession that got you there. So you built up, but now you're thinking, well, how do I deliver past 5 million? And it needs you. Well, it doesn't. What it needs is the people around you to be consistent in the delivery up to, that 5 million X in that business. So when the growth is repeatable, there's a way to service that scale, and that's what we're fixing today. We want to introduce a concept that changed how I thought scaling businesses work. And this is something that I called a process systems. Okay. And what we found is that the modular business model that we implemented around 5 years ago with Willy, 6 years ago with Willy, is what really allowed us to be true about our business. When we started to understand that business owners believe that 80% of their value time goes into the standardized businesses instead of focusing on the 20%, which is customized. And that's where most businesses have it backwards, right? Founders are completely messed up because they think that 80% of their time has to go into custom work versus 20% of the standard. And they find themselves thinking, I have to be everything for everybody. And that's where, like I said, 5 years ago with Willy, we saw that trying to be everything for everybody didn't necessarily deliver the right outputs. We wanted to be the best at something. And that something was on-time delivery. And then we changed the process around that. We said, we are going to do everything to be really good at that 80% of the work, which was on-time delivery. And that other 20% that is customizable, we can do the one-offs. We can tailor things and make things different for those customers. But if we focus on 80% of strategy and repeatable process, that allows us scalability. And so I wanted to make sure that we pointed out that first process for this group, because you might be thinking, I can scale by being, again, trying to be everything for everybody, say yes to everything, but that doesn't scale well. It's going to bottleneck you. So creating a system that recognizes 80% of what is repeatable is your first step to understanding how you want to grow this. And then that 20% where it becomes more customizable, okay? So if that sounds familiar to you, like that's understandable because it is something that we see time and time again with smaller businesses, especially as you're growing because you want to continue to do that. So I want to make sure that I teach this one story. I had a marketing consultant that I worked with, and she'd been running her business for about 6 years. It was great. It was sustainable, doing well, and she was convinced that everything she needed to do needed to be custom. Every client was different, and she told me, she was pretty adamant. She's like, I can't systemize what I do. And I was like, okay, well, why not? Like, let's sit down and actually look at what you have here. And we mapped out her process. And within an hour, we identified 11 out of her 14 steps that she did in her delivery process were identical across every single client. So today, I want you to look at your current processes. And where you might think that you're being customized, you might be shocked that only certain parts are actually customized. And in fact, most of what you're doing today is very systemizable. So that strategy has to be put in place to allow you for the first step of growth. Okay. Now, just as we go through this afternoon, we're going to ask you later on how many of you are in that current step, because I can bet you that a lot of you have been caught by that thought in that you have to start to do this. Now, the next one that I see is that they've packaged their expertise and they scale based on that expertise. They sell expertise. And what happens with that is that you then become the expertise they look for. They want to talk to you and only deal with you, right? I see this so many times from leaders and from businesses. And that's, again, another trap because it doesn't allow you to scale the right way. It will certainly not be sellable to investors. So your methodology around that needs to change. You need to be ready to develop it and really scale through what we like to call SOPs and make sure that you have established SOPs that are tactical. They cannot be these 120-page, 200-page documents that nobody reads because nobody will care for that stuff. What they're looking for and what you should be looking for is something that's easy to read, easy to understand, a one-pager max, okay, that has bullet points that allows your expertise to be taught and understood, but most importantly, applied by your team members. Now, what am I talking about? What's an example of this SOPs? Let's talk about how you go and you see a client, Okay. How do you interact with the client? Now, Willy's sharing a document step here that is super helpful and something that I've seen before. And it is a model that we've used, and this is exactly what I'm talking about. Is your first touch point has one set of steps and bullet points, an activity that follows through all the way until you close the deal, and then it becomes part of a flywheel motion that allows you to have repeatable process built behind it. So when you go and you see a client for the first time, do you have a documented steps of what that meeting should entail? Discovery calls, right? Does it have a output or expected output questionnaires from that first call? Great. If it doesn't, those are the type of things you want to have. And then it moves into what is the closing stage? Do you have service agreements? I'd be shocked, and I have been shocked to find out that most small entrepreneurs do not have service agreements. They simply do handshake deals and then they go to work and they leave in the, sort of in the unknown, the terms of the agreement as, when are they going to get paid? Are they going to get paid within 10 days of completing the job, 1 day, 30 days, 60 days, 120 days? It's unknown. All they know is that they can invoice, on an unknown timeline. So having these SOPs, these documented processes, allow you to channel through that worksheet that Willy was showing us here, which is that consistent funnel. Now, why I say this is because having SOPs is that step that allows you to have the freedom for scalability and to really become intentional about a strategy that lets you be hands off in your business while you develop others to operate your business, right? Now, this is something that I'll tell you, you're not going to finish in a day. You will not. But it's important that you understand the critical business departments where you need SOPs and that you start working on them. So you start with sales. That's your number one SOP strategy. You need to bring revenue in. You have to start with SOPs there. Then you need what would be operational SOPs. That's in how you deliver the work or product or service that you're working on. Then there's a finance SOP, okay? And this is how do you invoice and collect timely, okay? Then you have a marketing SOP, which ties into sales, but that's how do you create those funnels that are repeatable so that you're not always thinking about how do you get your next customer, okay? And then you have your quality. This is to make sure that you have consistent output every single time. Customer A, B, C, or D need to receive the same quality output. And think of fast food chains like McDonald's as an example, who have made it well known on their quality process to make sure that, everything looks the same. Whether you have a hamburger in California or you have a hamburger in, Alberta, it's going to look exactly the same. The cheeseburger is going to look the same, right? And that's the whole concept of the quality point. And so as we talk about these type of tools, it's important that we understand and leverage automation. I want to talk about this in a little bit deeper because I have now seen a lot of founders starting to automate, but they go into automation thought process first without fixing the broken process. First step, fix your broken process, okay? Do not assume or think that by adding a tech tool or tech stack to your broken process that you're going to fix it. Document it, actually test it manually, then automate it. Don't jump to automation, because if you do that, you're going to fundamentally just build a machine that breaks faster at scale. Like, that's all that you're going to do. This is, again, one of the biggest mistakes that I see now. And secondly, is that I start to see in companies, they trigger automation tools at like crazy. They start to plug in multiple tech channels when they don't need them. I've seen them integrate Slack. They bring in a CRM, then they bring in another communication channel like WhatsApp, and all of a sudden, you don't know where or who is managing any of these platforms, and you're creating more confusion in your business. So your intention was to use tech as a system, but in fact it becomes a drainage and a confusion tool. So my caution to tech right now as you're building SOPs and processes is limit them to a number that your business truly needs. And the critical ones are a CRM tool. That's very important. The second one is a project management tool of some kind and a communications tool. Three, you need three. When you get those going, that allows you to really learn about what your business requirements are. And then you can add on other tech stacks, right? A fourth one, if you're ready, would be an AI tool of your choice, right? I would really encourage ChatGPT Pro and or Claude if you're ready for that next level. Like Claude is phenomenal. But those are sort of my four tech tools that I would really channel for you to think about as you start to map out your processes. Okay. Now, as we talk about this, we want to make sure that we stress the fact that your business here needs you to be intentional about this. And it starts with you now identifying where your scalability is broken. So the first thing you're going to do is write out your SOPs and test them with one person. Have that one person actually walk through it, live through it, and make sure that it's real. Because if it isn't, then it's not quite defined yet. You want to make it clear so that anybody could do the task without your involvement. That's when you know that the SOP is clear and it's ready. Once you have one done, start going through the other channels. Okay. That's going to be really the critical point for today, because I want you to start making a trade between your time being invested in the business to making your time more functional and working on creating scalability tools that allow you to work on your business in the future. All right. So those are the sort of things that we wanted to talk about you today. We wanted to get you really excited about working on these systems and really teaching you the importance of how these frameworks work so that you're not stuck being a bottleneck working in your business nonstop. All right, Willie, I'll come back to you and let's just share maybe a little bit of experience and how it went with system implementation for you in the past.
Yeah, there's a lot around this that I wasn't focused on early on in our business at all, and then started to really bottleneck at where it was all on me, and we had to figure out how we could also train other people to take over different parts or different roles in our business, and this is where SOPs come in and are so important. So yeah, it is that, like earlier I showed a little bit of the LCO sales process we have in place, and it is, if you are looking to hire someone to take over now the sales role, well, this is our process, and you train them on to follow that process. And now you know it's done or will be done the way you have always done it. So that's how to think about it. And I know we were on the call with Philip earlier, Philip Braun, and he's working through our Compass program, implementing it through into his business, and where we're just going over. It's getting everything out of your head onto paper so other people can follow how you've always done stuff, right? And so, yeah, that was a game changer for us. And then, just like Hector said, find what are the proper tools that you need in your business to, but yeah, I think it's important to first build this out and not just think, oh, I'll buy another software tool that will fix all this for you. It only fixes what you put into it.
Yeah, and that one specific example I can share with everybody of how this could go wrong is, let's say you have a hiring problem, right? You are the only person that has the hiring authority. Let's call it that. You're the one that puts up the ads. You're the one that does the interviews. You're the one that finally hires people in your businesses today. And you say, "Well, I'm going to go and implement Bamboo." Bamboo is a great HR system tool that will house everything, and I'll be good with it. Wrong. Because all you're doing is adding more wasted time for people in your teams to learn Bamboo when they don't even know how to recruit yet. So write out the SOP. What are your recruitment channels? Where do you post? What type of posts are you putting, and ads are you putting? What demographics are you looking at when you're recruiting, right? Are you channeling this to a wide range areas? Are you being specific to how you're recruiting? And then how do you interview? What type of questions are you interviewing? Do you have an interview guideline? What makes a determination in the interview that they're the right fit or not for your business? All of those questions and steps need to be documented in your SOP and easy to understand. That way, you can delegate that task to a supervisor who can go through those things, right? You can say to an admin person, "Post the ad for me." Then your supervisor can funnel the right candidates and interview the right candidates, and ultimately make decisions on who will be hired and who won't, with the right criteria that you've taught them. That's where your expertise can't be just stuck on you. It needs to be channeled through those SOPs and then shared with your entire organization, especially those second line leaders that you're going to have in your teams. So that's how systems really come to play in real life. So if we painted a picture there for everybody.
That's a wrap for today's episode of The Inner Circle. If something in today's conversation resonated, inspired you, or gave you a breakthrough, please share it with someone you care about. The right idea at the right time can change someone's business and their life. So make sure you follow the show, leave a review, and stay connected with us, because this community is built on relationships, real support, and real growth together. Remember that clarity means nothing without action. So choose one insight from today, put it into motion this week, and notice the shift. Thank you for being part of this journey, for showing up for your growth, and for being part of the Inner Circle community. See you in the next episode, and let's keep growing together.